Hello, everybody, and welcome to What's the Story podcast. This is WTS 297. My name is Danny Murray.
I'm Graham Merrigan.
Mero, how are you keeping, my friend? It's been a couple of weeks since we did this. Have you been staying warm?
Yes, I'm doing okay. Yeah, you?
Yeah, man, good. A couple of weeks away from my holidays. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're going away to Orlando. What a place.
Yeah,
America's a
absolutely,
chip,
man.
but like us Irish love going
Oh,
there for holidays.
absolutely. Florida is a cesspit at the moment, particularly. Nice when we're on the Sanctus, you beller. But yeah, looking forward to the theme parks. So, yeah. I don't know. Do we want to
You
talk?
get on everything, Danny?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like I wouldn't be like afraid of roller coaster or anything like that. So yeah,
Lovely. You have
yeah,
to get on the Hulk.
yeah. I'm looking forward to Hulk. Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
get on Riptide Rock, I think it's called.
Oh, very good. Right. I'll have a
That
spin of the
you,
teacups as well, will I?
you start up, you go straight up,
Yeah.
and then you just drop down. It's unreal.
Lovely.
Friend of the show, avid listener, Ray Whelan is going at Christmas as well. He loves the old roller coasters, I
Man,
think.
Ray.
I know he
Man.
does.
Oh, speaking of people, and I must give a little shout out as well because they just people reaching out to people and connecting the world of online and all that kind of stuff. But I must just give a shout out to two lads on All Right Bud podcast, two North Dublin sounders who are documenting their weight loss journey and making a show out of it. And listen to a couple of episodes, good crack, and very honest, raw accounts of battling the bulge. So fair play to the lads. Check them out if you can.
Did you just use the word sounders?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, is that all right?
Did you mean to use the word sounders?
Yeah, it's in my lexicon, Graham.
All right, no, carry on.
Have you an issue with it?
No, just
Do we
asking.
need to have a chat off air?
We'll have a post production meeting. Thank you.
Production meetings with terminology that we use on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, grand. Where are we going with this week, Graham? We go straight into it?
We are. We're going into conspiracy theory land.
Yes.
With
Yeah,
wonderful guests. Who are we talking to?
we are right. So this week we are indeed talking to two gentlemen who have not just peered into the rabbit hole and come back out, but they've been deep digging the rabbit hole deeper. Brent Lee and Neil Sanders, two men behind Some Dare Call It Conspiracy podcast. And yeah, look, the world is mad, and we've done a few bits on different sort of conspiracies over the last while. We had Nikki Wolf on, we've had Eva Gallagher on, we've talked about this stuff just in general, and given recent events, I just feel it was quite pertinent just to kind of get that opinion from people who have been there, done that, wore the t-shirt, so to speak, so reached out to the lads. Happily, they said, we'd love to come on. And I'm delighted to say that the two lads from Some Dare Call It Conspiracy have joined us now. Brent Lee, Neil Sanders, thank you very much for your time, lads. How are you?
Very well, mate. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Lads, Brent, we'll start with you because, as I said in the intro there, kind of, you went down the rabbit hole, you've come back out the rabbit hole. Just kind of give our listeners who may not be familiar with you and the podcast a kind of brief intro into you.
Yeah, sure. I'm Brent Lee, and I'm a former conspiracist of 15 years. Between the years 2003 and 2018, I was pretty much a full-blown conspiracist who thought the entire globe was ran by a network of secret societies and cults. And essentially, they controlled practically everything, but not like global domination slavery over everyone quite yet. After like 15 years, it's a really long story to tell you like how I got in and got out and everything. But so I essentially just eventually left in 2018 because I saw real world consequences like were different to what I had imagined were supposed to like play out in the New World Order. You come across new information, you should change your opinion. You should change your worldview if it is strong enough to do that. And for me, it did. So I did that in 2018, and then 2020 came around, the pandemic hit, Trump was rising, QAnon, and I just saw the real dangers of conspiracism. that like I had been a part of. I saw how it was being used to manipulate people, and it was just growing bigger and bigger and became more and more dangerous. So I thought I should try and speak out about it. And in 2021, like I thought, right, I'm going to start trying to pull my friends out of the rabbit hole with me. And I started making videos and eventually met Neil, and we started a podcast together to kind of discover all of the conspiracy theories, like exactly what they're made of.
Yeah, yeah. And then Neil, from you're an author, and you specialize in stuff like mind manipulation. Or I hope I'm saying that right. But what's your background in this rabbit hole conspiracy world?
Well, I mean, it's similar to Brent's in as much as that basically towards sort of the pandemic and stuff like that, I noticed that people were using conspiracies in ways that weren't particularly healthy, and they also basically in the sort of alternative media or that milieu or whatever you want to call it, there's certain things that you've got to believe. There's certain things that become truisms. Rothschild banking, climate change is a hoax, the European Union is a terrible thing. Stuff like this. And there were several things. Like one, I noticed that a lot of stuff was lies. It was contrarianism and people jumping on it, and they were doing it in such a way that it wasn't going to help them in any way. Like denying that COVID was a thing. This is probably a good way to explain it, right? Brent recently did an interview with these guys, and somebody said in one of the comments, like, I can't believe that Brent has abandoned conspiracy theories after everything that we've been through in the last 3 years. And I thought that nails it, right? Okay, because this is they've got that backwards. The reason that conspiracies have been helpful for these people in the last 3 years is because they provide an answer, and that's not looking for the truth. That's bolstering your psychological well-being by telling yourself that reality is not reality, and that's what started getting on my nerves with it. Basically, there was a lot of incredibly right-wing stuff that was coming in. There was anti-Jewish stuff, pro-Hitler stuff, pro-Nazi stuff, that was purposely put there by right-wing groups, stuff like that. And you're getting all the contrarianism with denying COVID and the sort of incongruity with like with Brent, like Trump's in. Brexit happened. Like these are supposed to have not happened, and yet they did. So people just didn't. Rather than looking at facts, people tried to fit reality to their already preconceived sort of notions, and it frankly got on my nerves. And I did quite well in the sort of whole thing. Got with some very top of the sort of food chain sort of people. Was working with them, and particularly around the start of COVID, just realised that they weren't really interested in the facts. They're interested in presenting a narrative, and a narrative that served them. Like I won't give you exact details, but there were certain people that are right at the pinnacle, and we had sort of discussions about whether they're real or not. And I'd say, well, here's something that shows that they're real. Like, well, we're not discussing that. I was like, this isn't the truth movement. This isn't. It's not even a search for truth. It's utilizing conspiracism as a way of basically making yourself feel better in the world. And if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But I'm not interested in that. I want to find out the truth. I want to find out the truth about some of these things. And again, this doesn't mean that conspiracies don't happen. Conspiracies do happen, and there's lots of real conspiracies out there, but the world is a lot more complicated than some people will have you believe, and that's what I disappointed in is that people started to use conspiracies as a way of basically just justifying their existence or explaining certain things rather than actually looking at the facts. They'll say this is the theory, flat Earth, whatever, viruses don't exist, and then they'll try and fit that to reality rather than follow the evidence. And also I found that like within that realm, and people aren't like, there's a party line. If you deviate too far from that party line, you're persona non grata. So when you start looking at things like and saying, actually, maybe Brexit was not a good idea. Actually, maybe Donald Trump isn't the savior of humanity. Actually, maybe we should be concerned about green issues and stuff like that. Then it jibes too much with the, as I said, the party line, and again, for me, that just it defeats the entire purpose.
It's interesting because it seems like right now we're at this kind of point where, and you said alternative media, and yet some of these kind of conspiracies have become now so mainstream that they're everywhere. You can't kind of avoid them anymore. And I remember like
Well,
my
it's
first. Sorry, go on, yeah.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people don't see too interested, like you've got a lot of mainstream outlets like Fox News and Sky News Australia, Spiked Line, Spectator, Telegraph, far right, wing broadsheets and stuff like that. They were all behind these sort of anti-COVID things, and like one of the things that struck me over the sort of recent years was, hang on, a lot of these conspiracy theories, they don't half benefit the oil industry. They don't half paint the oil industry, this massive, enormous, like, behemoth, as this plucky underdog fighting against these horrible scientists that are basically trying to push tyrannical climate change and stuff like that. It's like, hang on. So the oil companies are the goodies in this. It doesn't make any sense. And then similar thing with Brexit and similar thing with Trump and stuff like that. If you look at who actually benefits from these things, it's not the citizens, it's not people. It's large conglomerates, large corporations that are connected to the oil refinery industry. There's a bit of an oversimplification, but this is the thing. And so again, that was jibing with my ideas. You're going on about the deep state and trying to fight against the deep state, and then these think tanks like the Heritage Foundation that are intimately connected with the CIA and the British intelligence and stuff like that, and the oil industry, and they're the people that are pushing Donald Trump and pushing the idea of Brexit and stuff like that. And people ignored that. They totally ignored that, basically. And so, like, it was the thing. And sorry, one thing I wanted to say as well, how we got together with Brent was, I saw one of Brent's videos. Never met Brent. I've only ever met Brent once in real life, actually. But I saw his video about how he got out the rabbit hole. And because I was so in it and I understood the ramifications, what shit he was going to... Sorry, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it about
Yeah, go away.
Oh, right. What crap he was going to get. I was like, that is a brave guy. That is a very brave, articulate person that has dared to stick his head up above the parapet, because they're gonna come for him, because he's gonna alter their perceptions in ways that they don't want. And so I thought, brilliant. That's exactly the sort of person that I want to be aligned with. I don't want to be aligned with flat earthers or pro-Trumpers or anti-vaxxers or people that think that Greta Thunberg is an evil woman and stuff like that. It's juvenile.
It's interesting you're saying that, because Brent, in the kind of short time I've been following you, I've kind of seen some of the stuff that gets sent your way, and in other people we've spoken to over the years. We spoke with Aoife Gallagher. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with her. We had her on the podcast when our book came out. Great book, Web of Lies. Check it out, lads, if you haven't already. And some of the stuff that she gets sent, and some of the abuse, and even just
the abuse we got for having her on the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a fraction of what people like that experience. Yeah, and even recently, in the place we're from, it's a place called Ballybrack in Dublin, in Ireland. It's a small town. You're talking sort of like 5,000 to 10,000 people. It became the national focal point of anti-immigration, anti-refugee protests and stuff going on. Like the village was kind of held hostage almost for a week, 10 days, Mero, something like that, by these kind of protests, and this idea of the great replacement, essentially, and these plantations of foreigners coming in. And it was
the great replacement.
Yeah, I remember tweeting about it at the time, and like the abuse, and I mean, it was one tweet, the abuse I got targeted about me and my wife, who happens to be born outside Ireland. And I was just like, fucking, this is just one tweet. So these people like Brent, yourself, Neil, who are kind of dedicating time and energy to saying, okay, here's what you're being told, but here's the facts. Like the shit you guys get, how do you deal that and square it off?
I try and laugh it off most of the time, or I challenge it. That's what I do, but it's just go for it or just laugh it off. I mean, sometimes you can't. Sometimes, you're human, and it does take its toll, and the best thing I can do at those times is just log off.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've logged off for a few days because it just really, really hurt. It really hit me, and because there's only so many times you can take being called a wanker before you've had your lunch. You've had it 20 times and you haven't even had your lunch yet, mate. God, it's just it kind of takes its toll. But shout out to Aoife, because that's when you sent me a message I checked out your podcast, and that was the first episode I listened to because I knew who she was.
Yeah, yeah, she's absolutely brilliant and an absolute legend as well. But it's when you say that as well about kind of being called a wanker 20 times before lunch, it seems like that's the way sort of people operate in this world as well, where it's they just abuse and attack. There's no, not it seems, at least in my experience, there's no interest in having a kind of logical conversation slash debate. It's you're a paedophile apologist, you're a
Yeah,
prick.
and that's
You're,
new. That's something new, isn't it, Neil? Like it wasn't around like 10, 15 years ago when we first were saying.
No, there's DVDs like 9/11 Truthers where basically they're having a debate about, some people think are playing hit it, people think there's that is it, what's his name, Von Kleist, and that was as close to a fist fight as you were ever going to get, where people had different opinions basically. So, but this is the thing, they don't like, you're not allowed to go outside and use logic. For example, the Great Replacement, we've said this before, but like the Great Replacement, two things. One, it's not a replacement, is it? Because it's new people coming in, so they're not replacing you, so it's not a replacement. So sometimes people call it white genocide, and it's not genocide either, is it? And the thing about white genocide, or the concept of white genocide, is ironically it proves white privilege, because we are the only people on the entire planet that get to have a genocide without actual genocide.
Yeah,
But there you go. Like that's I'm interested in the concept of the right wing element of it all. Particularly like, with government kind of politicians like Trump or Boris Johnson and stuff like that. Do we believe that these personalities actually believe in them, or are they just jumping on the coattails of maybe we can monetize this support some way? Maybe we can jump on this support. Particularly in America, it seems to be a bit vile.
Yeah, what happened in America was basically you had a load of like, again, a bit of a self-certification, but people that basically backed by the Koch brothers or the Wilkes brothers. So you have your Ben Shapiro's, your Dave Rubin, your Stephen Crowder's, your Mariana Populators, your Bannons, Breitbarts, all that sort of nexus, Candace Owens, Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins. There's a sort of conglomerate group behind them. It just happened to be right wing. It just happened to be connected to the oil industry, and they essentially saw the demographic of conspiracy theorists and went, "Oh, these are a piece of piss. You just need to, like, I'll say George Soros and World Banking Cartel, and they'll drop their knickers for me, because that is literally all that you need to do." And this is the problem. Like, in the same way that it started bizarrely with Gamergate, like, now they spotted that basically people could be manipulated in a particular way through loyalty to a group. And off the back of that, they started basically inputting all these things that just slowly start to treat towards right-wing politics. And the best example of that is QAnon. Right? QAnon is politics for people that are into wrestling. Like, there's no politics in it. It doesn't explain any politics. It's about fighting pedophiles underground. Okay, but what the end result is that it sends you towards Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and in the UK against sort of like, well, essentially idiots like Boris Johnson and Rees-Mogg, and then even excuse me, even nastier people like your sort of Reclaim Party and Heritage and stuff like that. And so that's what happened. I mean, Brent will tell you, like, in the way past, like the sort of start of a lot of conspiracy theories came from the John Birch Society, which just happens to be absolutely 100% connected to these think tanks through people like the Coors brothers, the Coors family, and the Kochs and the Trump family, and people like that. And
yeah, the Koch's brothers' dad was a founding member of the John Birch Society.
And that's where this sort of New World Order, Jewish world communism trope came from. It's where the books, none dare call it conspiracy, came from. It's where Alex Jones got his start. And it's where a lot of the sort of tropes came out. It doesn't mean that absolutely everything in those books has no grain of truth in it at all or whatever, but it does mean that there is no world Jewish conspiracy. It was contrived by a radical Christian organization that basically had a very sort of political bent. Now, the John Birch Society is now what is known as the Tea Party movement in America. And so again, this is where it sort of all bleeds through, basically. But yeah, that was essentially it. I mean, the two main things that has happened recently that sort of were embraced wholeheartedly by the alternative crowd were the Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, which some people saw as the preventing Clinton from getting in or whatever. But it doesn't matter how it's framed, because the end result is that basically who's benefited from it? Well, I'll tell you who benefited from Trump's presidency was lots of right-wing corporations, because the first thing that he did when he went in was give a 25% tax cut to large businesses, which is not for the people at all. It's like, they somehow managed to sell the idea that he's anti-establishment, or that Nigel Farage, the ex-banker, is anti-establishment and stuff like this. Do you know what I mean? About like Farage, for example, like Breitbart UK, ran by the Mercers and Steve Bannon, like that was set up specifically to promote UKIP as a political party in the UK. That was entirely what it was for. It doesn't say that, but it was. So this is where sort of right-wing element comes in. And then unfortunately what happens with that is that it sells, because on the internet people often feel disenfranchised, want to feel powerful. They don't have that sort of, they don't have the sort of sensibilities that they would have talking to a person because of the separation of the screen and stuff like that. And so very, very quickly being a little bit right wing, being a little bit authoritarian, telling everybody else that they're wrong, that they're the rot at the core of the world, and if only everyone else is just like you, then everything okay, suddenly becomes really, really desirable. And then you take it a step further. People get addicted to it. People literally get addicted to anger.
I was going to ask
gives you a
about that.
dopamine response.
I was going to ask, because Brent, you mentioned that like 18 years you were involved in this, and kind of like a lot of people, probably 9/11 was kind of where you went and got your teeth sort of stuck into it. And then did it become, as the years went by, it was that kind of, it was for all intents and purposes an addiction, where it was kind of like you felt like you were uncovering something, and every time you uncovered something new, then you had to scratch that itch of digging deeper and digging deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why it's called the rabbit hole. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper down, and you just kind of, the more you dig, the deeper you go.
Like, and at what point, like, was there anything that stood out to you as was it something that was ridiculous? Was it something that was just 18 years at that point? I mean, it's an ideology, but was there anything that kind of you just went, hang on, it's no longer making sense? Like, what was that moment for you?
Well, in the end, it was the same stuff that Neil's talking about right now. It was Brexit, it was Trump. It was this weaponization of conspiracism, like that does start like around Gamergate 2015 to 2018. Those are the years that I found myself really coming away from the communities. Like and trying, just kind of very, very much isolating myself and digging into my own kind of conspiracism. Like at the end of the day, you asked like, what else did I see as ridiculous? And the thing is like, in the conspiracy culture, like there's hundreds of conspiracy theories that you look at and oh, that sounds stupid. Or there's a lot of conspiracy theories about a single event. And you might agree with one of them, but not others. So back to 9/11, like you could believe the controlled demolition thing, or you could believe that it was Jewish space lasers, or the planes were holograms, or there's all these different kind of conspiracy theories, details that everyone has their different ideas about it. But the whole thing is, 9/11 was an inside job. So you kind of all still agree on that, don't you?
It's funny because like me and Danny were talking over many podcasts over the last 8 years about, we mentioned conspiracy theories every couple of episodes maybe, but we always track back to 9/11, loose change, and I loved back then. I was a teenager, 16, 17. I loved reading conspiracies. I loved the Wikipedia era of just find another link. Before you know, you've got like 12 windows open and you're just gone down, you're scratching down that rabbit hole. But at the end of it all, I had the ability to laugh it off as, oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh, wow. I didn't make it, and nor did anyone close to me ever make it their personality. When you came out of the rabbit hole, so to speak, Brent, was there relief?
I kind of transitioned out. I don't feel like I popped up one day and I was like, oh, I'm out of this. It was just like a slow transition to all of a sudden realizing, hold on, I'm well out of this thing.
Mm.
I can remember like one specific moment where I was writing some lyrics, right? And I felt like I was just churning out some sort of trope. And I felt like I don't think I actually believe what I'm writing right now.
Wow.
And that
Yeah.
was the moment I kind of actually stopped even like writing lyrics at all. I stopped. I couldn't do anything anymore. Like everything kind of stopped. But I definitely remember that moment of going, I don't know if I even believe this anymore. And I kind of felt like, oh crap. And I like had to look back and go, when did we start coming out of this? Because like I had to take out a lot of Jenga blocks of my like tower of conspiracism before it would crumble. And I just was kind of not noticing as I was taking them out, but that eventually it just went,
Yeah.
you know.
Was there? I'm
So
curious
interesting.
then, like, because you guys sort of come out the rabbit hole by the time all the January 6th stuff in the US was happening, and that was probably the sort of peak of the QAnon stuff with Donald Trump and all. So, from your point of view, as you were watching that unfold, what was your feeling towards those people who are was it sympathy? Was it just sheer
Yeah,
disbelief?
I'd, I'll tell you what I thought the plan was. I still think this was the plan, and no one agrees with me. But I think Trump wanted someone to get shot on the lawn. I think he genuinely did that, like, and I think that anybody that's, I'll tell you this, right? Okay, I watched it
Mm.
live because I knew it was going to kick off. So all these people that says, "Oh no, there was no suggestion there was going to be violence." There bloody well was. Me and my friends sat down and got some beers out and went, "This is going to kick off." And halfway through, we said, "Oh, I see the plan. They're going to storm the Capitol, right? And someone's going to get shot, and then the outrage of that." Is gonna be the list. Like, this is the thing that's gonna bring everyone together and go, shot for peaceful protesting. It's like another Kent state. Trump's a hero, right? That was to be the plan, not necessarily to actually like break into the building and stop the vote or anything, just to cause an incident that
Mm.
made America go, you know what, this has got serious. We need to stop it. And I think that's what there was the plan, that basically hoped someone would get shot. And thankfully, it didn't happen until they got inside. And but I feel sympathy for those people because I feel that they've been tricked.
Yeah.
I feel that they were absolutely 100% used. And so, in that sense, I think I feel sympathy. Was it the most judicious thing to do to, break into a federal building whilst filming yourself? No, no, it wasn't. Like, and so in that sense, I tend to think, you silly sods. Like, but I can understand the thing. And just to sort of go back to sort of like the previous thing, I'll tell you for why as well, because it's a community, right?
Mm.
That's why it's so difficult to get out of it. So when you're in it, you don't necessarily all believe everything. Like, don't believe Hollow Earth, don't believe crisis actors, don't believe that the Queen's a lizard. But there's two ways of looking at it. A, you sort of entertain it and you pretend that you're Einstein by going, I'm simultaneously holding two contradictory things, and I am brighter than the average bear because I think that maybe there might be lizards as ruling the planet. And the
I won't
second
rule
thing
it
is
out.
that you tend to let people. Well, yeah. And the second thing is that because you like these people and you like the group that you're in, you tend to give people a pass. So when David Icke was starting to say really
I was just
sort
going
of
to say
via
about David
Holocaust
Icke.
denial stuff, yeah, you sort of went, ah, but he's mostly right, isn't he, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or you sort of you did some mental gymnastics where you went, well, I know he's saying that he doesn't think that really the Holocaust happened, but maybe what he means is that there was some propaganda that was used, or do you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
overlook the really sort of horrible stuff or the really really stupid stuff because basically it's like when your friend has got a daft t-shirt or whatever that you really like, so you just think, all right, he looks a twat but it makes him happy, fine. Like, so
That's the thing, though, Neil. A lot of
so
this stuff
that
does just just doesn't make sense. I mean, as Danny said about the anti-immigration that's currently going on in Ireland, like it's been going on maybe since January or so, and it's sporadically, it's quite, minority, a very small minority, but sometimes they can ruffle feathers. But they were pushing something about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, saying that there's videos of immigrants coming in, and the question being
raping little girls, was it?
That was one of them, of course, but the other one as well was, is this the start of the NATO army? And then there's people that I know.
Shit. Yeah, it's been going on for years. That
men of fighting age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's people I know that shared it, and we're like, what if this is true? It's like, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. No, it doesn't make sense. But here's the thing: like, you get yourself into a position of such a contrarian action, right, to the point where if they say it's daytime, it must be nighttime. So this is the point. So what happened with COVID, for example, was there's a pandemic. It wasn't even at this point, right? Okay, it wasn't even like a big deal. Just that there's this thing happening in China where there's this disease. We're monitoring it. We're keeping an eye on it. And so every single person in the conspiracy world went, no, there isn't. No, there just isn't. No, there isn't. There was no nuance. There was no flavors of this thing. Well, actually, to be fair, some people went, this is a bioweapon that's going to kill absolutely everybody on the planet. But that soon subsided because it wasn't happening fast enough. Some people said it was 5G, but it didn't really make any sense either. But this is the point. You become contrarian, and so you take that. And this is the thing starting to get on my nerves with it, because they become truisms. We know that COVID isn't real. We know that the tests don't work. We know that vaccines are deadly. All this nonsense, which isn't true, but they know it. And so their worldview is built off of that silly foundation. And so when things start happening, like people who were massively anti-vax dying of COVID, they have to come up with some explanation that suits their narrative. So it's basically either viral shedding from the vaccine, because it only comes from the vaccine because COVID doesn't exist in real life, or basically, this person's been poisoned with something or something else. Like, do you know what I mean? And this is the point. So when you're that far in it, you've got that sense of belonging. It's not far off being akin to in a cult, because what a cult offers you is tells you exactly how the world is. It tells you where your position in the world is, and it's surrounded with like-minded people that basically agree with you and make you feel better about yourself. And to a degree, that can be applied to anything, like, political movements, football club, whatever. But that mechanism is very, very prevalent in conspiracy world, and it's the carrot and the stick. Like, join us. You're dead smart. We figured this out. Now let's go and kick some immigrant heads in. And if you don't like that, basically, it's like what happened to Brent, and to a lesser degree me. Like, you're a shill. You're obviously working for the 77th, blah blah blah, etc., etc., etc. And again, they just defeats the whole purpose. And this is one of the strange things about the influx of the right wing and stuff like that. Not long ago, in the 90s and early 2000s, even shortly after, 9/11 and stuff like that, it was still, what was that book that they like, right? Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is an illusion. It was all very inclusive. Everyone got the fact that stuff about Muslims was to trick you into a foreign policy position, making people like tacitly support wars in Afghanistan, Syria, etc., etc., etc. That's lost now. And you've got basically, that's totally gone. And there is a fear of replacement of the white race. There is, genuine fascist overtones that are going through it, saying basically we should be militarizing to protect ourselves against these things. And the irony of this is that basically, like, we're not even in Europe anymore. Like, so, do you know what I mean? Like, so, as you say, doesn't make sense. If you take 2 steps back and look at it and go, no, they're actually moving further apart. But when you're in it, and when you're surrounded by people saying, "Oh, that's," I know it looks like this, but that's sort of the point. They make it look like that so that it's as a protection. So you can't fight against it and stuff like that. Like,
there's an anti everything vibe about them, isn't there? Though.
Yeah, because everything's fake as well. That's the other thing that got me out of it as well, was when everything started being fake, not just crisis actors. I mean, fair enough. Okay, I entertained the moon landing was fake, and I could work around to understanding why mind fake such a thing. I don't think that anymore. Like we did a proper deep dive into it, looked at it, and stuff like that. But everything's fake. Volcanoes fake. Nuclear weapons are fake. Birds are fake. Dinosaurs are fake.
The
Right?
fake boards is the one that
No,
gets me
no.
every time.
This is the thing. Like like a Boston bombing was fake. Sandy Hook was fake. When you're sat there and saying that no, these children weren't dead. These parents, basically, these people are just like liars or whatever. Okay, when you've got that level of distrust of reality, it's irony, right? The irony of that everything is fake is before the greatest trick of the party was to get people to I forget the quote. It was to ignore the evidence of their eyes and ears. Right, every single this thing is fake comes from one thing. I've looked at that with my inexpert eyes, and I don't think that looks right. Who gives a shit what you think? Right, okay,
Well,
that's not evidence. That's you not
that's it. Yeah,
but that's
like
it.
there's one guy who he's well down the rabbit hole, and I followed out of curiosity, kind of halfway through the pandemic, purely because of the stuff that he was sharing online. And I think my favorite tweet that he ever sent was, "I haven't seen a board in over 10 days. They're clearly changing their batteries." And it just, I'm like to genuinely believe something that daft. I just thought, man, that like again, like I don't mean it to sound whatever, but that is a genuine sort of. I feel sorry for them that this is where his brain has
Nobody
gone. Like,
starts with birds are fake.
yeah, true,
Like
true.
this is the thing. You start with something like that assassination was engineered by the state. Then you move on to that terror action was engineered by the state. And then you know what I see, then you move on to, well, maybe if they would do that, they might fake the moon landing. Then you think that. You think, well, actually, they might think this. We're looking at a thing at the minute, and the Manchester bombing, and the
Yes.
entire premise of it is that basically, well, we know that the Boston bombing was fake. So with that in mind, let's examine this. And it's like, we don't. You just don't. You might believe that, but you don't. And again, this is what I was talking about before, of these truisms. We know this is the case. We know Hillary Clinton sacrifices children. So if we see her in the company of any children, it must be suspicious. That sort of stuff, basically. And it's like, we know that they're all paedophiles and that they kill people and drink blood in Bohemian Grove. So if we see anyone in Bohemian Grove, they're obviously a paedophile who drinks blood. It's like, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
Brent, I
It's
was
not. That's against.
exactly, yeah. Brent, I was watching something maybe 2 or 3 months ago. It was chronicling kind of a conspiracy theorist, and the conspiracy theorist, well, I can't remember what it was. It was just on, might have been a YouTube voice clip or something like that, maybe. And basically, the conspiracy theorist was confronting friends and family about a conspiracy, but the family members had lived experience and proof that this didn't happen. And the conspiracy theorist's rebuttal was, well, I met a guy last night in the nightclub and he told me this, that, and the other, and he knows because he works there. But the two family members were like, well, no, we're your family. We're telling you that's not the truth. Why are you believing a stranger you met for 2 hours or an hour? When did we lose that ability? And to when did we lose the ability to not believe someone close to you and believe a stranger, whether it be online or whether it be someone you met for 20 minutes? And
Confirmation bias, isn't it?
Where's the common sense gone there?
Well, I think it's not even anything to do with that. Really, I think it's more to do with it's your ideology. You can. It's like a religion. It's like a cult. It's like that kind of, or political party. Any of that. It's an ideology, and you can have multiple people in one family in a house that are all practicing a different religion. You know what I mean? So I don't think it is that. There is a good question as into why do we Why do we have to argue about it now? Like it wasn't like that before. And I think, it's just something that's being pulled out of us somehow. Social media is like pulling it out of us.
Yeah.
We've seen the
Yeah.
different things that have come out, say, about Facebook, about how they would like upvote posts that had more negative reaction because it keeps people like involved and engaged more. I guess that kind of fuels it a bit more. But then again, you got the social problems. Like the world is messed up. Shit is corrupt. People are suffering.
Mm.
And we all want to take it out on other people. And then there's other people that come along and they want to manipulate you so that you then hate these other groups.
And fear, is it like,
Is
is there the thing about kind
well,
of almost turning fear into a commodity? You want to
oh
fear the
yeah,
negative, you
absolutely.
want to fear the
It's all
foreigner.
fear porn. Like
Yeah.
like this is the thing. I was arguing with somebody the other day about like the World Economic Forum, and it's like, what do you think the ultimate end game is? It's like, oh well, sort of world neo-feudalistic system where we're essentially serfs. And it's like, well, I tell you what, when that happens, you tweet me, right? Okay, and I'll apologize and I'll say, yeah, you were right. Like this is the thing. In order for people to be right, we all have to die in a lot of these things, which is really sort of fatalistic and weird. Like I tell you what, Brent nailed it. Is social media on both ends, right? Okay, right. One, because basically social media encourages you to think, and I appreciate the irony of this because I'm doing it myself, that your opinion matters or is in any way valid, right? Okay, because it isn't. It just isn't, right? Okay. But the flip side to that is that you can find any answer you want on the internet. If I can find somebody that will tell me that black is white, and I can find a community that will agree with them. So it doesn't matter what you want, you can find the answer you're looking for, right? And that's a massive problem. And there are people who make money from directing you to people that say it's not that, it's this. Join our Patreon and buy our supplements. Like that's the con of it. But this is the problem. Basically, is to say we're encouraged now to think that everybody's got a valid and equal opinion, whether you be expert in a subject or not. We're also encouraged to basically feel indignant if somebody disagrees with you. And it's perfectly okay. Nay, it is witty to like destroy them on Twitter. Like, brilliant. Oh, I really murked that bloke earlier. Oh, I feel great about myself. And then say the problem is that basically, whether you're right or wrong, you could find hundreds of people that will basically go, yeah, no, that's spot on. That's absolutely right.
Yes.
Yeah, zebras, they're all pink, all of them. I know. My dad works in the zebra factory. Like that's it. It doesn't matter how ludicrous, you can find it. And
There,
and people gravitate towards that because I'll tell you for why. Because it's better than it's like that slarty pass thing. Is I'd sooner be happy than right.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Like like people convince themselves that they're right to be happy. They're not,
There,
but it doesn't
there,
matter because again, they just want an answer.
there's an awful lot to be said for people who'll buy Alex Jones dick pills online from Infowars, but then they'll accuse other people of being shills for George Soros. And again, I want to go on the record, as I did when we talked to Nikki Wolf, as I did when we talked to Eva Gallagher. George Soros does not fund this podcast, despite me openly reaching out to George Soros and begging him to, lads. So
He
if
passed
anybody
it on
wants,
to his son now.
yeah, sorry, yeah, that's true. That is true. Look,
You're emailing the wrong guy. I'll hook you up.
That's
Don't
where
worry.
I'm going wrong.
I got his email. I'll hook you up, man.
Deadly, love it. Because I mean, all I want is a free lunch. That's all I want, lads. And the Rothschilds, the Soros, like none of them. The Clintons.
He works hard, man. He works hard. He got me 7 Patreons. He's a badass. I love you, Patreons.
I have to say, I'm really enjoying the podcast. The 8 sort of part mini series that you've done on Pizzagate is great, and some of your stuff you've done as well. I enjoyed your Meet Cute episode. I have to say that was. But what if people want to check out more of your work? Where can they find you, and what have you got coming up next?
We are on all the podcast apps. Some dare call it conspiracy. Not really on YouTube because we can't really talk about the stuff that we want to talk about, like our Pizzagate series. I started to try to upload that. Ended up getting 2 strikes, and I was on my 3rd strike, and they were going to delete the channel. So you can't really find us there, but we're everywhere else. Or some dare call it conspiracy.com. And I'm on Twitter all the bloody time, at Brent Lee SDCIC.
Brilliant. And Neil, where can they find you?
Well, I'm instantly on Twitter. I've got a Facebook page. I've actually got a website called neilsandersmindcontrol.com, which is like some of my older stuff, the mind control, Cambridge Analytica stuff that I did, and stuff, which is, again, it's conspiracy stuff. But I like to fondly imagine that it was the more sensible end of conspiracy stuff. That might not actually be true, but, it's my story and I'm sticking with it. So,
truisms, Neil, truisms.
But yeah, the podcast. Yeah, quite. But yeah, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple. We've got our own website, someday call it conspiracy.com. So yeah, check us out. And if anybody's got any ideas for like topics or anything like that, just get in touch.
Excellent. Gent, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. It's fascinating, and we could have spoke for hours and hours, and as evident by the amount of content out there on conspiracies. But look, we'll leave it there for now, and I want to just say thank you very much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. It's been that.
Thank you.
Fascinating conversation with the two boys there, Brent and Neil. Big thanks to them. Check out Some Dare Call It Conspiracy on your Spotify's and your Apple Podcasts and all those podcasty places.
Really enjoyed that. I'm gonna go back and listen to their Pizzagate one.
Yeah, it's an 8-part mini-series and it's very, very good.
Excellent.
Very good. But yeah, look, the world is mad. It's full of mad people. There's all kinds of cult conspiracies. There's all kinds of cults of personality. There's all kinds of just madness and mayhem in the world. And I just think people could all do with just asking themselves a couple of questions in terms of that really what it is, though.
Or you just don't have to read them. I mean, you don't have to base your daily life about conspiracies.
No, you don't. You don't. And not everything has to add up.
Your life will be less hectic. You'll be less anxious if you stop reading these things and thinking that there's an agenda against you or an agenda against everything. There really isn't. Like,
if your default response has gone to the mindset where you instantly think somebody who thinks differently to you is a paedophile or a paedophile apologist, then come on, just fucking disconnect for a couple of days there for your own sake more than anything. Jesus, like, no. Anyway, I enjoyed that. Lads, very good. Check out the podcast. Graham, anything else you want to discuss this week other than my use of the word sounders in the opening intro? Or are you all right?
No, everything's good. Everything's good. If you want to listen to us and previous episodes where Danny doesn't mention sounders, you can go to WTSpod.com or you can search WTS Pod on any podcast provider. Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, everywhere, anywhere you can get a podcast. He's at Danjo Murray on Twitter. I'm at Mary Gomania on Twitter. And until next time,
your eyes,
full hearts,
and lose, wait, look.